Can't say thank you enough. This event is the culmination of several months of hard work. This is one of Riverworks' nonprofit art center's community roundtables. And the way these community roundtables work is they are open to any artist, any creative peoples in the community. So one of the really nice outreach pieces that Riverworks does is really trying to democratize access to the arts, particularly here in the Ag Reserve, which has been traditionally underserved. And so rather than gatekeeping the arts, it's open to practicing artists, experienced artists, professional artists, as well as people that just enjoy self-expression and creativity. And in the past, we've had a number of different themes. Last summer's theme involved a collaboration between authors and visual artists, where authors wrote an original piece of writing, and then the artists had to read the writing and create an original artwork just based on the writing. Sight unseen, and then we did a big reveal at the presentation. The previous one was around the topic of African American history and culture, and involved a visit to the Smithsonian Museum downtown and exploring these themes, these developing themes. This one was around indigenous peoples of the Potomac Piedmont. So this corner of Montgomery County's Agricultural Reserve is very rich in history. If you look at this beautiful building that we're in now, thanks to the historic Medley District, the same folks that run the John Poole House here, as well as the Seneca Schoolhouse out on River Road. You can also go down to the C&O Canal, and you can see a lot of that history around the C&O Canal and the Civil War. We also have a lot of history here in this corner of the Agricultural Reserve around the African American communities that popped up around the Civil War. And if you have not read the Canaan book about the Sugar Land community yet, please check it out. It's over in the sort of gift shop area there at Locals. And a nice announcement, Montgomery County Public Schools has decided they're going to start using it as a part of their curriculum. Yes. So if you know anyone who is in education, please encourage them to get the book. The book benefits the Sugar Land Ethnohistory Project. All the proceeds go to them, to maintaining the property, to keeping the history alive, and supporting that. They also have created an educational curriculum to go along with the book, because we know teachers are very busy people. So definitely check it out, give it a read. It's fascinating, it's for a great cause. On that note, this is a corner of local history that has really been overlooked and overshadowed a lot, with more of an emphasis on the Civil War, more of an emphasis on the C&O Canal, which is more easily observable in this area. So this corner of history really has provided the foundation, often literally, for what we benefit from even today. However, if you go out into the community and you look to find out more information, hi Peter, thank you for coming, that's okay, please, have a seat. You will not see signage, you will not see a lot of commemorative information. So even if you're someone who's interested in history, if you're passionate about learning, it's a real challenge to find that out here. And so one piece of this project that was a really important goal was to start making this history, which has been overlooked, has been in some cases deliberately erased and continues to be, to help make it more accessible to people, more visible to people, and to give it the respect that it deserves. I also want to emphasize that this is, I'm a professor, and so in academia we have a lot of, developing topics where things will change as new information and new research becomes uncovered. And that's what you're going to see with us here tonight. So there's a lot of vulnerability and a lot of humility involved in this type of work, because it's not easily accessible. There isn't a solid foundation out there like there would be if we were like, hey, let's do a roundtable around the Civil War, or let's do a roundtable around the C&O Canal. That would be really fascinating, and it would be wonderful, but it would be a lot easier. So this was a tricky topic, so I just want to say, first of all, respect to all the artists that were involved in this. And I also want to say that a major topic of discussion for all of us ongoing was this piece of respect and appreciation and not appropriation, and trying to be humble and keep an open mind. And just again, the idea of sort of sparking interest in the community, sort of dropping a stone in the water and having those ripples go out, and eventually seeing it as a more, present topic around us as it should be. So anyway, sorry, I talked way more than I should have, but I had really strong coffee ahead of time. So just to let you know, tonight we'll be here like 4 to around 6. If anyone needs the restroom, there's one right around the corner here on the other side of this glass case. You can also go here at Locals. They have one downstairs and one upstairs. We will be doing an artist sharing, so each of the artists here will introduce themselves. They'll talk a little bit about the experiences, and then they'll share their artworks with you. We do have some index cards back there, so if you have a question, and we would love to hear your questions, please, so we can keep the flow going with the artists, just write your question on the index card. We'll collect it at the end, and then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. And then we'll close up for the evening with an official thank you to Riverworks and the Historic Bentley District for hosting us. So before we get into what the artists did, this was a little bit of a unique roundtable. My name's Christine Ray. I should have started off with that. And I'm a professor at Frederick Community College, and I'm also a local writer and an Ag Reserve resident, and I've been researching this topic for about 4 years now. And so I myself, this is not my background, this is not my area of expertise, but it has become a personal passion for me, and something that I want to contribute to in my community, particularly as an educator and as a parent. This roundtable sort of took on some of my own educational philosophy, which is hands-on learning. So we did have some curated resources online that I provided for the artists so they could educate themselves. We also did some hands-on learning. So we went and did a day trip to Southern Maryland. We went to historic St. Mary's City, and there they have a woodland Indian village with the docents there who are so amazing, who research the material culture and actually create things in the ways that the original peoples of the area would have. So for example, they had this amazing satchel, and the satchel was made from cordage. And so they went and researched which particular plants would have been used, and they created the cordage, and then they wove it into the satchel, and then they had the strap. They were doing a cooking demonstration that day over fire. They also got some clay for us from local clay deposits, and they were showing us how to make some clay vessels. So that was amazing. And then we went on to Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum, and we went and saw their woodland village there, which had a palisade around it, and they were Maryland State archaeologists there on that day. Then later, the next month, we came here and we did a little local tour of some of the indigenous sites here, and talked about how the local waterways and the local ecosystem really shaped the way of life, and how even what we see today and what we use and we benefit from is literally walking in the footsteps of the first peoples that were in this area. In addition to, reading, looking up online resources, discussing, and asking lots of questions, and so it was a really great experience, and we hope you will enjoy. And as time goes on, our hope is that more information will be uncovered, and more people will be aware, and it will be easier for people to access this important history and culture. So thank you. I also want to say a special welcome to my friend Peter Brooks. He's here from the Piscataway Indian Nation, and I told him if he wants to say something, he can, and if he just wants to be a guest, he can just be a guest. So I'm putting you on the spot, but thank you for coming. We appreciate it, Peter. Thank you very much.
So I guess I'm supposed to go environmental and scientific illustration. So I'm very used to doing research and then from that research telling a story from it, and which I use Christine's PowerPoint, her information as well as other sources to do this map. I need a map. This is my map. I know it's going to be hard for everyone to see, but afterwards we can look at it. So I have, first of all, I have to emphasize that this is a work in progress. It's not finished. It's not final. There are more sites to be put in there and a lot for more information. And this is just one version. I expect there perhaps to be another version in the future showing being more in there, because this one focuses just on the the Piedmont physiographic province of Maryland, which is the yellow area. And of course, it does extend beyond into Virginia and Pennsylvania, but I have it focused here. And it also focuses on a period of time, the historic woodland period. And that is about from about 1200 BC to 680, more or less. And to the left here, I kind of blew up the area called Coahanga. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it is Coahanga Rutu, and it's the Potomac, otherwise known as the Potomac above the falls, and includes the Piedmont area and the Ag Reserve and where we are, and some of the tribes and some of the villages that have been found. There are more than this. I just make it all the way back to the river.
It's a good start.
It's a start.
Yes.
So, and I'm open to any suggestions or possible additions to it. So, in the process of doing this, I found a lot of archaeological sites that have been documented at the Jefferson Patterson Museum, and as well as all on Maryland.gov. And I read through those, and from that I was able to determine which sites were villages and which sites were like short-term resource camps, where they often left the main villages to gather resources, to hunt and trade. And well, the whole woodland period is kind of characterized by a more sedentary lifestyle. So they tended to stay in these areas where there was a rich soil near floodplains, near rivers, major rivers and streams. And you can kind of see that in this map. And I'm sure that there's a lot more resource temporary camps that have been found over the years. And many of these also have picked up evidence of previous historical periods, as well before the liberal period. They just kind of built upon each other. It's really interesting. It was all a very interesting experience. I had a great time doing it, and I look forward to pursuing some more and building upon this and making more versions of this.
Yes. So you know, the Ag Reserve today is used for hunting, fishing, foraging, farming, and you know, it's been used for that for millennia. So, you know, protecting the Ag Reserve is protecting this legacy and protecting that wisdom.
Yes, and I forgot to mention that there are like, the fish weirs. Also, I'm sure that there's a lot more, and that was part of the research I never really was able to complete fully. And I also included the roads today that were based on Native American trails, which I found quite interesting. I found so many interesting facts that I wanted to throw in there. That's another, I would like to also color artwork to it. This was become technical, but
It's a good start.
it was a start. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Thank you,
Thank
Catherine.
you.
Yeah.
I have a clip.
Oh, okay.
My name's Linda Smith, and I am a non-artist. I have no artistic expression.
I argue with that.
But I wandered into Christine's presentation in the beginning talking about this project. And her words hooked me because of deep feelings that I have from other experiences in other parts of the country. And along with this, there came the need for a project. So this is my project. My personal bias is that the indigenous people were the first recyclers. They showed us a clear way to live. We've mostly ignored it. They used what was available to them. They used every part of what they took, and they left a clean earth. So, I'm trying to portray this. My work is on a recycled bag, as are everything else I have. Christina's first words, oh dear, I lost the letter, was that we would be passing through ghosts when we were doing this work. That combined in my mind with the Cherokee saying that I saw in New Wauchula, Georgia about 10 years ago, and it means we are still here. That paired with Maya Angelou's poem, When Great Souls Die, they existed, we can be and be better, for they existed. So these are my feelings. I know it's very subtle and you can't see from back there, but all of the tribes that I came across and tribal connections, I recorded. You have to look if you want to know about indigenous people. I tried to reflect the plants that we learned about. Lots of discussion on twisting. Which way do you twist making cordage? Left, right, what do you twist? So I tried to reflect that also. And that's my work.
We need to do a little furniture moving here. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Keep my water. Oh, hello. My name is Danny Bollier, and I'm what am I? I'm a Riverworks Associate Artist. My work is usually with paper and inks and things of that nature. I also do some assemblage work, which you'll kind of see here. And I have facilitated at Riverworks a handful of the Made in Studio classes. So my project, I wanted to participate in this roundtable because where I grew up, which was in Southern Maryland, I grew up around many, many people who were descended from indigenous people. And this was common knowledge. You know, we're kids, we're doing things, it's all common knowledge, but nobody ever really talked about it. And so I had my notions of childhood notions of what an indigenous person or Indian would be. And so I chose a box because when you look at this box, you can't really tell what's in it. You have to open it up, which is sort of a theme here, that we are among this history of indigenous people, but you can't find it. So you can't see this unless you open it up. So in my box, I have a lot of stuff going on. In the lid, and I'll try to hold it up. There's a lot of stuff moving around. In the lid, I have what would be my childhood ideas of Indians, American Indians. So we have horses, we have those really wonderful, colorful beads that you find on all the souvenirs in the different places. You know, the moccasins and the dolls and things of that nature. I love that stuff.
have a turquoise colored stone, which would be, kind of traditional. I have an image of a buffalo. These are all traditional kind of things. And then I have the Viewmaster and the film strip because, well, I had Viewmasters and film strips when I was in school. So that's how I learned.
Viewmaster.
Yes,
Yeah.
Viewmaster. So inside my box is what I learned on this journey. And so you'll notice that everything is kind of wrapped, well, most things are kind of wrapped up. This happens to be deer skin that is brain tanned, but is commercially brain tanned. So evidently you would take a deer, that deer contains enough brain material to tan its hide. And so, but this is commercially done, this is not the old fashioned way. So I have in here, I have a little fish. So fish were very important, obviously. They lived on the river, they would catch fish, they ate them, whatever, and it just looks like a plain fish. You turn him over and he has a cover, but when you open him up, I made a little fish weir. I was completely fascinated with fish weirs. I don't know a lot about them, so please don't ask. But yes, please.
Pause 1 second.
Sure.
For those of you that are unfamiliar, fish weirs are basically stone fish traps in the river. You can still see them here, particularly when the
Yes.
rivers are low, and
Yes.
the Potomac and the Monocacy. They're basically a V with an open at the point, so the fish would kind of be funneled in, and then you can have a basket or a net there to
Yes.
catch the fish.
And that's what fascinated me, that they're still there. I just thought, and the ingenuity of it. I just thought I was just really quite taken with fish weirs. Next I have, so I made a book. So I like using the book form because you have to interact with the book. If you want to know what's in the book, you guys can come up after. I'm sorry, all this stuff is kind of hard to see. If you want to know what's in the book, you have to pick it up, you have to touch it, you have to open it, you have to interact with it. So that's why I love working with book forms. And you can do a lot with book forms. So I have it wrapped up because you have to uncover everything, right? Nothing's easy to see. And so I'm not going to go into every detail of the book because there's a lot in here and everything means something, but you can look at it afterwards if you like. So I have it wrapped up. And so the inspiration for this was just how the people lived. And I have, paper, I have colors, I have some imagery, and that's basically what I wanted to do. I wanted to capture elements of how they lived and different animals that they would encounter or use and different elements of nature. So there's all sorts of interactive things like trees, owls, crows, colors. Some of the mark making mimics some of the artifacts that I saw. The pottery would have these lines on it, or the copper, well, they were metal, I can't remember the metal exactly, but they were metal triangles that were used for different things. There's also, they had a lot of beads. I just made little beads out of polymer clay. They also kind of look like chunky stones, which was a game that they played. There was a high concentration of chunky stones found somewhere, meter-ish here.
One of the sites here, down near Sycamore Landing, off of River Road, they uncovered the largest collection of chunky chunky stones found at any site in the state of Maryland.
So I just have lots of, and I have some blank spots that I haven't finished yet, because you never finish the book. So anyway, I won't go into every little detail. You can absolutely look at it though afterwards. So that was my book. And so now I have a couple of little things, but we're not going to talk about all that. I do want to talk about this though. This is a little turtle shell fragment that I found in my yard. It was a box turtle, and he had evidently, he passed away, and he was all broken up, and it had been a while. It wasn't like wet or anything. But I found this little bit of his shell, and I wanted to, during this process, I found out about the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I did a little bit of research on it, and I was quite moved by it. And so I wanted to acknowledge that in some way. Now, the official symbol of that is a red hand painted over an Indigenous woman's face. I was not using portraiture in my project, and I would have been a little uncomfortable with it anyway, because I'm not Indigenous, so I was a little bit sensitive to that. But I did want to acknowledge this, and I wanted to raise awareness of it. So I just put, I know it's hard to see, I put a red hand in the turtle shell. And that way, if it is kind of sensitive, it can be hidden. And then, of course, I had to make, a piece of paper to go with it. And it's layered, you have to unwrap it. There's a lot of things, but it just simply says see. And that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to see. I think it's important that we see. And so now I'm to the end. Almost. Is this the right way? Yes, I do. Okay. So this is what I consider the foundation of my box. And I have a false bottom. You have to remove this to find out, right? And this is a map of our area from a vintage atlas. Nothing really spectacular. But this is the foundation of my box. And I wanted to communicate their connection, their very deep connection, and almost spiritual in some cases, or maybe not almost, I'm not sure, to nature. And so I have a lot of natural elements in here. I wrote the names of some of the tribes. And I have, this paper I did with inks, and I had some crystals with walnut ink, and I wetted it, and I did this background. And it kind of reminds me of the earth. There's some brown, there's some green, there's some blue. And then this paper around here is called onion skin. It's vintage airmail paper. They don't really make it anymore. And so this came out, I sprayed it and everything, and it came out looking like, to me, the nighttime sky. The vastness of the sky. And then the other elements are all natural. So I have an antler that I got from a friend. I didn't find it, unfortunately. I have a shell that kind of looks like a wave. I found that at Assateague. I found a little piece of a stick at Monocacy that looks kind of like a pipe. So it kind of made a good foot down there. And then I have a shell that's kind of at Assateague that looks like a wing. And then this little bit of wood that looks kind of like an eye. I found that in my house, in my yard. And so I would just, in closing, I would just ask that you not only learn, not look, discover, but to please see, just see.
Hello, I'm Melinda Pierce. I am I'll show you. A Riverworks associate artist. I'm an art teacher and artist. My piece is a representation of the indigenous agriculture way of planting, which is the Three Sisters. So it represents the squash, corn, and beans that are planted together. And I'm going to grab these real quick. If we're talking first, just a quick thing about the experience. Of course, I like the part where we did some collection of raw clay, natural clay, because that's the material that I'm most used to working in, and I enjoy those. So we all collected clay. We made bowls, and the plan is to have those fired in a primitive firing, because that's also one of my interests is to work with primitive firings and alternative surfaces. And that would have been similar to traditions or methods used by indigenous cultures. So those are things to continue with and projects that I hope to continue on with. With the Three Sisters, the first time that I came across this was reading Robin Kimmerer's book, braiding sweetgrass. And I love the idea of the way the indigenous cultures work with nature rather than always trying to fight to get things to work, or it seemed much more in tune with the natural order of things. As Robin Kimmerer said, the three sisters feed people, they feed the land, and they feed our imagination, telling us how to live. Indigenous cultures knew from learning from the plants themselves that these three things can help each other, can support each other, and can nourish each other. They knew because plants are our teachers. We can learn from plants if we stop and see them and look closely. We can find how we need to live in the world, even. For example, the corn is the plant that comes up the first. It's like the first child. It has a mission. It needs to get tall, and it needs to do it quickly. So it bursts out, and it creates a support for the beans who come next. And the beans are a little bit prepared. They come out, they already have their two first leaves, and they continue to come up. And they wind around and they send out that tendril at the top that actually creates a loop. And there's a name for that. I'm not gonna remember it. But it creates that amazing loop hanging in the air, and it reaches out to grab and embrace the corn. And so just that idea of the support of the corn and the embrace of the beans. And then we have the slow sister. We have the sister who is taking her time, and that's the squash, the baby of the family, the child who tends to wander and goes off on her own. She moves out away from the other two plants, but still her leaves, because the leaves are big, they create almost a natural mulch so they can serve the water. They also retard some of the pests because many of the varieties have a prickly surface on their leaves, so it deters some of the pests that would be coming with plants. And this was all harmonious and balanced. For example, the way that the leaves of the corn grow is so that each one gets the most light. And if you see the way the bean wraps around the corn, the sprouts or the blossom of the bean come between the leaves so that it again is leaving the light for the other plant, for the corn. So they respect each other. Each one of the three sisters has a gift, and our purpose is to know our gift and to be able to know how to use it to better the world, and to receive the gifts of others. So that's the best that we can do. Just a couple other things. When we look at a table of a feast, they work together because they taste good. They all work together that way. They work together because they're nutritional. We have beans are protein, corn is a starch, and squash provides a lot of vitamins that we need. So together in so many ways, again, the harmony of it, the balance of it, and it's working with the way the plants want to live. It's the way they want to be. In the indigenous culture, and I'm referring to Robin Kimmerer, the idea of individualism is encouraged and supported because as an individual we find those gifts that we can each bring. A harmonious culture is not as vibrant. It doesn't have as many things to pull from to enrich the culture in general. For example, when we plant everything in a row, that monoculture is more susceptible to disease and pests, pests and disease. And it's also not as prolific as planting them together as three sisters. And the sisterhood, I think, is important. The fact that we visualize these as sisters they're not competing, they're cooperating. They each have their own purpose or their own goals, but they all are working together to nourish each other and support each other. I'll end with a quote, and this is from Brady Sweetgrass. Of all the wise teachers who have come into my life, none are more eloquent than these, who wordlessly in leaf and vine embody the knowledge of relationship. Alone, a being is just a vine, squash, and an oversized leaf. When standing together with corn, does a whole emerge, which transcends the individual. The gifts of each are more fully expressed when they are nurtured together than alone. In ripe ears and swelling fruit, they counsel us that all gifts are multiplied in relationship. This is how the world keeps going. All I can say, just a couple of things here, I'll point out. So in the work, the blue represents the Potomac River, which was a source of nutrition and a very important part of the Piscataway people in the area. The little red beads, orange beads, represent some of the places that we stopped. We went to Hughes Hollow, which I later went back to with my daughter for birding. It's an excellent place if you haven't been. And Monocacy Aqueduct, which I visited years and years ago and not since then. And then the green represents the indigenous trails in the area. For the blue, I looked up, I researched embroidery stitches. There's nothing to find, or I could not find anything particular to this area. And many of the, most of the artwork, traditional work of indigenous people, you're going to find a lot of weaving, you're going to find a lot of bead work, not a lot of embroidery. But this stitch is called the Pueblo stitch. It was used in the Southwest. It's kind of like a chain or a split stitch using two different colors. So that's where those ideas came from. It was my first time with that Pueblo stitch. So yeah, it's a time-consuming one, I would say. Again, I would like to do more research to find a little more about that background and who actually used that and how it was used traditionally.
You guys are hard to follow. I'm telling you. Oh my God. My name is Colleen Rackus, and I am an artist. I am an associate artist with Urban Works as well. There's some beautiful ladies. And I took this project on because I really love adventure. I like going places. I don't like to be sitting in front of the TV and watching something. So I thought, oh, this is really cool. I'm also going to learn something, which is also something that's important to me, is learning. What became apparent was what I didn't know about the indigenous people who were from the Potomac Piedmont. Zilch. Because after all, I wasn't prepared, and everything I know about any indigenous people was taught to me by my childhood friend, Tonto. Anybody remember Tonto?
Yes.
You would. You would not. Absolutely not. Tonto was the Lone Ranger's sidekick on TV, probably before you were born. But anyway. So I'm looking for information. I'm freaking out because I couldn't find anything. As we were warned by Christine that we wouldn't find anything. So we had to go further. And I am somewhat of a by the seat of my pants person. I jumped in and I figured, you know, that's gonna appear. Didn't appear. So I went to the secondhand bookstore, and there was a young man there that helped me. I said, I'm looking to find something about the Piscataway Indians. I looked through books. I found nothing. I went to the chapter, Indians, nothing. And the kid comes back to me and he says, man, you're in luck. I said, what? He said, look what I found. He found this book, Indians of Early Maryland. You don't need to hold it because this is the only page that was in the book, is this map. There was nothing else in this book. And this book was written in 1949 for the Maryland Historical Society. And I was like, oh, damn. I thought I had found something. But all I have is this map. And this map, quite frankly, doesn't look like that map that I found. But anyway, I thought that was just interesting. It underscored what Christine had said. We wouldn't find a whole lot of information. So anyway, I kind of thought about it, and one night I had this little brain fart, is what I call them, but anyway. Okay, I'm not going to do maps, I'm not going to do other things that maybe seem obvious, or I'm not going to write a poem because I'm not a good poem writer, I'm an artist. And I said, I'm going to do something with symbolism, with traditions, and with wisdom that affected or influenced the Piscataway people in their daily lives. I figured, you know, I want to know what they do. I want to know who they really are. That was my scope. So I'm going to keep this very simple because, again, it can get out of hand. Now, when I started doing this, I had this big thing that was all the way over here and had all kinds of stuff on it, and I'm like, oh, that looks awful. So I pared it down. I'm going to highlight a few items that I really enjoyed, and I'm sure that you will enjoy as well. Starting with my symbolism. This is my symbolism. Some of it might look familiar. This might look familiar. This might look familiar. This is where the Piscataway people actually were in our area, and it is pinpointed on this map as the Potomac. So that's why I put that there. And then we'll move on to something else. But the interesting thing that happened today is y'all and us are sitting in a circle. Well, the circle is extremely important to the Indian population. I'm going to read this to you because I thought it was very interesting. It says, everything the power of the world does is done in a circle. The sky is round, the earth is round like a ball, and so are the stars. The wind is in its greatest power, whirls. Birds make nests in circles. The sun comes forth and goes down again in a circle. The moon does the same thing. Even the seasons form a great circle in a changing and always coming back to where they were. The life of a man is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. This is a quote from an Indian, I actually tried to look at some quotes that I thought was really interesting, and that's why I'm sharing it. Hold on. Okay, you're not there. Let's go here. The other one that I would like to highlight, if it's in here, yes. is the eagle. We all love the eagles, especially even around here, we have bald eagles, and if we see them, we freak out. We're like, oh wow, this is really cool. But the bald eagle, or the eagle, I would say, is the strongest of all birds. For this reason, Native Americans have chosen the eagle and its feathers as a symbol of what is highest, bravest, strongest, and holiest. In the Native American culture, eagle feathers are given to another in honor, and the feathers are worn with dignity and pride. I thought that was interesting too. I mean, we know that the eagle is out there, and we know that everybody loves them. And we loved them so much at one point they were almost extinct, but now they're starting to come back. Another thing about the circle, let me go back to this is the encampment of Piscataway camp. It's in a circle too, so everything goes around in a circle. So moving on to traditions, I wanted to know a little bit more about that. Since I chose it, I figured I better find out what it's all about. And here's another quote I found that I thought was kind of nice. Did you know that trees talk? No, you didn't. They do. They talk to each other, and they'll talk to you if you listen. I have learned a lot from trees. Sometimes about the weather, sometimes about animals, sometimes about the Great Spirit. This is another quote from an Indian, elder. So I thought that was kind of cool. And continuing with the traditions, in the Piscataway or in every Indian life, nature is sacred. It is important that they live in harmony with surroundings, and that's key. Now, look what we've done to our nature. We've built on it. We've got, landfills. We've got, nothing like it was before. So, oh my God, my heart is beating. The ceremonies are important. Dances and drumming represent the heartbeat, like that. Christine talked about St. Mary's City. St. Mary's City? An interesting thing about the Piscataways is they do pottery just like everybody else, okay? And I thought, cool, this is gonna be so easy. All I need to do is paint some pots and put some geometric things on it, and there it is. And I was gonna do that. And then I read, they don't paint their pottery. And I was like, okay, another bubble burst, what am I gonna do now? So, when we went to the Jefferson,
Patterson.
what's it called?
Jefferson Patterson.
Jefferson Patterson Museum. Christine had told us about a pot that was found by the archaeologists there. And true to form, I mean, it's not, the whole thing is not there, but it's kind of big. I mean, it's not one of these little pieces that they usually find, which was amazing. And there was no geometric drawings on it. So I was like, oh well, what are you gonna do? It's the influence of Tonto. So, let me see what else I have here. The other thing is, the Indian wisdom is amazing. They are very spiritual people and really truly believe in a higher being. So the quotes that I found said, kindness is to use one's will to guard one's speech and conduct so as not to injure anyone. We don't talk about other people. We don't gossip, do we? Here's the second one. Lose your temper and you lose a friend. You lie and you lose yourself. How true. And I love this one. I love this one. I have to love this one because, you know, I've been married for a long time. Marriage was like traveling in a canoe. The man sat in the front and paddled the canoe. The woman sat in the stern, but she steered. Thank you very much. I'll put it in the back and if you want to take it. And I have my business card on here. If you want to talk art, you know, feel free to contact me. And to that end, I have to do this, Christine. I have a show at Locust. So please go look at the show if you get a chance. They just put it up on Monday, and it looks fabulous.
It really does.
So I apologize, I would have to read my speech, I'm not as good at speech giving as some people here. My name is Betsy Castellino. I lived in Poolsville until last year for 36 years. Some of you may know me. I consider myself to be an artist and I am a Riverworks Associate Artist. A couple of years ago, I was driving to Point of Rocks and found myself wondering, why are there so many places named Tuscarora? A name I was unfamiliar with on my route and in other local areas. So I decided to look it up. And I was surprised to learn
Sorry, I apologize.
they were named after the Tuscarora people, an indigenous American group. They came to Maryland in the early 1700s from North Carolina after a horrible war against the colonials and other indigenous people there, referred to as the Tuscarora Wars. According to the Emmitsburg Area Historic Society and National Park Service, they are the people who named the Monocacy River. Eventually, they left the area and went north. This got me interested in learning more about the indigenous people of the area, and that's why I decided to join this project. I think my biggest takeaway from the experience is that there are many places where people lived in the area before and even during the settlement by many of our European ancestors, but we have very little awareness of them. Our visits to St. Mary's City and Jefferson Patterson Park in Southern Maryland, as well as to the areas local to Poolsville, were eye-opening. When we were at Jefferson Patterson Park, I stood on a little beach on the Patuxent River and thought I might have been standing in the footsteps of a Piscataway looking out over the river. One event in which we participated in St. Mary's City, as was mentioned by others here, was making bowls from river clay, as the indigenous peoples of that area believed to have done. I was amazed by that, and imagined that the inhabitants of Peters Island, near us, would have done the same as well, living on an island in the Potomac River. Peters Island, near Point of Rocks, was settled by a group of Piscataway around 1699. The Piscataway were an indigenous peoples, maybe most of you already know this, but they were known to have lived in Maryland, and there were several groups. According to emissaries from the governor at that time, they had a fort with about 18 homes on Peters Island. In 1704, it was reported that their population was greatly reduced due to a smallpox epidemic. But they recouped from it and were doing well by 1712. They left sometime after that and also went north to Pennsylvania. So I painted a picture of Peters Island from the shore of Point of Rocks, and I wrote a little poem that I called River Clay Bowl Makers. And there's just a little picture here of some of the clay bowls that we made. Where I go, others went before. Their energy remains and sustains me. I do not often think of them, though their influence on my life is strong. They walked in the sand on my beach. They swam in my rivers. They ate, as do I, and danced as I feel driven to. I choose to remember and honor them, though I do not know them well. And thank you, Christine, for your brave leadership.
It's everybody, isn't it? Okay, let me check my notes. So I'm feeling particularly spacing today. I just want to say thank you again to the artists. This was not an easy topic. I think everybody discussed individually, collectively, like going down a rabbit hole with the research, because it does take effort and it took a lot of heart and it took a lot of intention and humility. It wasn't something that was easily seen. And that was one of the major goals of this project, is to help make this important history and culture more easily seen for others to come afterwards. And again, you know, as an English professor, it's hard to share work when it's in process. And I just want to commend all these creative people who are willing to be vulnerable and say, you know what, this is a tough topic. This is not something that's solid. This is not something that's easy. But coming at it with this enthusiasm and with this care and concern. So they were a wonderful group to work with, and we all agreed that we hope this was a start of something that will continue and will grow. So if anyone had any questions, did anyone have questions they wrote on a card? Do you want to say something? Yeah, please. Peter's going to say something, and then we'll do a Q&A.
No, I wanted to know that, can you mention that Gilbert's birthday that's going to allow?
Oh, yes. In recent news,
Last week.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can say it.
Last week I was watching the news, I don't know if anybody else saw this, and, I heard the name Piscataway, and I'm like, okay, where is this coming from? You know, I feel like, you know, when I started painting, the teacher I had us do pairs every session. So any place I went, I saw pairs. I saw pairs in clothes, I saw pairs on shirts, I saw them everywhere. And so when I heard Piscataway, I said, uh-oh, they're gonna start following me now. But it was really joyous because a church in Gaithersburg, the Piscataway Green Garden was dedicated at the Ascension Episcopal Church. And I was like, hallelujah, they're finally getting some recognition. You know, this is really wonderful, you know? So I immediately sent her an email. I said, did you see this? And so I have it on my notes to tell you when I forgot it.
Yeah. Thank you, Pauline. Peter?
Sure. Oh gosh, thank you. So you guys will have to forgive me. I have a family emergency and had to come in from a surgery. Person I'm caretaking for is getting a gallbladder. Painful process. So I haven't slept much, but I'll do the best I can. But first off, I mean, I really want to thank Christine for inviting me here, for your courage, you know, and your vision, your insistence really of pursuing this against so many obstacles. And I'm sure it's, you know, with so much unknown, it's easy to get discouraged and, you know, what have you. So thank you for, staying with it. And artists, wow. Yeah, I mean, just beautiful people giving their time and you know, commitment to our people. It's extraordinary. So thank you. We haven't seen this in a long time, I think, or if ever, you know. And so that's really moving to me. There may have been other efforts and what have you at the Episcopal Church, but I just didn't know about. And so just a couple of things that I wanted you to know in reflection of all of this work is just that, you know, the Piscataways today that we encounter, you know, we are nothing like the people that you first encountered. And it's the same with the African Americans. The people you see today are nothing like those people who walked off the boats. So, you know, we've changed a lot, and the fact that we are so adaptable, like you've got somebody like Buffy St. Marie, you know what I mean, shows sort of the irrelevance of DNA, you know, that we don't have to rely so much on race as an indicator of things like wisdom, you know, and understanding, you know, where the waters blend. So for this place, I think the important thing that I tell people is that for thousands of years, all of the babies born along the Potomac River and the Monocacy River and the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay in general would have been loyal to someone like the Piscataway Tiyak. No matter what your race, who your parents were, it didn't really matter. The key thing was speaking the language. In Native American tradition, particularly here in the eastern woodlands, you would never commit violence against someone for whom you spoke the same language. Sort of forbidden, sort of a law that existed. There was no excuse for it, and you were deeply looked down upon by everyone in the community. And that was sort of our punishment, sort of banishment. You couldn't come back here. But as pointed out, in some of these village locations too, what's the forgotten thing is that, you know, they're also there for ceremonial reasons. You know what I mean? They're places where good ceremonies can take place, and a place gets a reputation for ceremony. So the Piscataway's reputation is for the blending of the waters ceremony. And, you know, it's a relatively simple ceremony, but it's a Maryland ceremony.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I send some people in? Is that okay?
Sure, my friend Peter.
Hi.
Hello.
This is Sandy.
Nice to meet you, Sandy. Thank you.
Send some people.
Sure, great, thank you.
And so the blending of the waters ceremony is a relatively simple ceremony, and that's because, you know, for most of the lifetime of the Piscataway Indians, the original ones, most of the day, especially for men, was done getting ready for ceremony. Piscataways are very eccentric Indians. We're similar to the Indians you might find in Brazil. We didn't believe in wearing a lot of clothing because we were going to be one with Mother Nature. Yeah, and then, yeah. Well, that's true. A lot of stuff is very fluid. But we also don't really touch each other in the way that we do today, and in dances and stuff. You'll notice American Indian dances, no one touches really. Whereas in other dances, like square dances, you come together and all that. As I say, most of the day was spent preparing for ceremony or getting into ceremony. Most of that was spent in sweat lodges and stuff like that. There is also a tradition of poles where faces are carved in, and so you would go into the center of these poles that would look down upon you. But it was our responsibility, you know, as the men, to care for, you know, the women. This is a matriarchal tribes run by women. If you come back to your wigwam and your pipe and moccasins or whatever outside of the wigwam, as a man, that means you're done. As a man, you're also responsible for your brother's wife, especially if anything happens to her, because that maintains the family. Everyone also born into a clan being an animal. There's one of 7 animals that the Piscataway have. Turkey is really seen as our big bird, turkey, here in the east, in the woodlands. Because turkeys are one of the few birds that can actually kill an eagle. They're so strong, yeah. If they get their claws on you, yeah, you're finished. They're so strong. The turkey is also the bird of sacrifice. It gives of everything it has for the survival of the people, and so we're very affiliated with the turkey here in Maryland, unlike other Indians, you know, that use eagle feathers and that kind of thing. We also very strongly associated with the beaver, the home of the Tayac, who was the leader for this region. And by the way, the Tayac territory, people loyal to the Tayacs extended from the coastline of Virginia, all the way down, into Williamsburg and stuff, all the way up through Maryland, into Pennsylvania, all the way up to New York, in the Iroquois. Now the Iroquois consider the Lenape, the Lenape are like wives to the Iroquois. Piscataway are considered grandchildren to the Lenape. So that lets you know how we were in context to the Iroquois nation. The Iroquois are extremely organized. They have one of the longest running continuously operating democracies in the world. Piscataways are not into that. We're very disorganized. We're into smaller communities. These communities of about 100 people, like she showed the Palisade, people are wandering in and out of them and stuff like that as relationships change. And cousins and sisters. It was described as like one long continuous village. We're all Algonquin speaking people, so we all kind of understand each other, and we can change our language to fit in with the people from New Jersey or the Eastern Shore or wherever. So there's a lot of fluidity. A wigwam is like meant for 6 months maybe, and then you kind of move on to the next one. And if they're open, you can sleep there. That's no problem. You know what I mean? It's like you can play there. So they exist everywhere and that kind of thing. And so you can imagine, relationships and friendships are very fluid and cross a huge geographical boundary. These types of relationships. So that's something else to consider. And then just because the new government came, and this is really the third government. The British were the second government from about 1634 until 1776. But just because these governments come and go, we who are born in this land can still remember our original loyalty, our original accountability. What the Tayac refers to as our original instructions. And they have to do, and also you should know, one of the things that separates Maryland or Eastern Woodlands Indians, North America, from other tribal people like in Africa and India and these types of places, and even Japan, where they have this like Shinto indigenous religion. We here in this part of the world are much more influenced by the moon. In Africa and India, they're much more motivated by the sun. The sun is, but we pay a lot of attention to the moon. We even, like when the eclipse happens, it's a big deal, especially among the Iroquois. It proves that the moon, grandmother, we refer to her as grandmother, has the power, and the sun is seen as a more of a masculine type of figure. They are not worshipped, but considered family members. So to a Native American looking up at the moon and saying, hey, that's my grandma. The thunder beings are your grandfathers. So they're not really feared as much, but more like, part of your family, if you will. And so there's this desire to be one with everything. The key thing is that the fact that, as I say, we have changed so much, and now look at you, you're changing too, you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff, an extraordinary amount of innovation that is a part of your everyday life, which has Native American origins to it. When the British came here, they were wearing red coats with white shirts and these hats and stuff like. Who was in camouflage? Right? And now today, does the United States send anyone out without camouflage? That's our hallmark. A military strategy of sending forth scouts who report back to create a customized solution that is just meant for a hit-and-run engagement. That's our style. You guys, the Europeans still fight like they do in Russia and Israel. We don't fight that way. We're like, say what you gotta say, do what you gotta do, and then go back home. So nighttime fighting is really forbidden, And as you're about to go to battle, there are all kinds of reasons to call it off. It's also extremely difficult for us to have like a Napoleon figure or something, because Native men, we don't listen, you know what I mean? You can lay out this great plan and we'll come along and see something and be like, hey, let's do this, that, the other. And it will throw the whole plan off. So things like ambush and stuff like that are clearly part of our thing. You know, the idea of a tomahawk, which is now sort of an essential weapon for the United States, comes from this part of the country. And the tomahawk is used to distract you. You know, by the time you're looking at the tomahawk, somebody is coming out of the woods behind you, or so, you know, has trapped you. These things are mostly Iroquois. Piscataways are relatively passive. Piscataways do have warriors. Our warriors make it all the way to the treaty at Fort Detroit, I think in 1854 or something like that. The treaty was signed. I don't have the exact date, but there's others who can tell those types of dates. And I think, you know, the other thing to understand, just very spiritual people into the blending of the waters. The blending of the waters ceremony, people bring water from everywhere. We pour it into a vessel. We say, look, just like the water, we're what? You know, the water that you brought, yeah. And so we're going to be transparent with each other. And we're going to be clear like the water. We're not going to hide from each other. So yeah, so we're known as great peacemakers. And it's a very large empire, but it's a voluntary empire. People follow the Taiyag because they feel like he knows what to do, you know what I mean? So if any UFO person landed in the central part of Pennsylvania and they were like, take me to your leader, they'd be like, go to that guy in Southern Maryland, he knows what to do. But that's another trait of Native Americans. Most of us are very star-oriented people. We celebrate Thanksgiving when we do because the Pleiades star system crosses over the Iroquois. The Iroquois are saying to their ancestors, hey, we're fine, leave us alone, no use in coming here. And so that's why it's a big feast and celebration, and all of these disputes and stuff are forgiven. The ceremonies that would take place at different places, and what I'm trying to do is start a nonprofit for the preservation of these ceremonies, like the blending of the water, so you can experience it and share it, that kind of thing. But like one ceremony from out west, the mourning, wiping of the tears ceremony. You know, the tribe is divided up into two groups, the mourners and the tribal members. The mourners go through a process, a ritual, they burn something, they're trying to get over the loss of their loved one. And to the Indian people, when you lose a person close to you, you're between two worlds. You want to be with that person in the world of the dead, but yet you're still alive. So after all of this, the tribe lines up, and the mourners come through, and each tribal member hugs a mourner and says, please stay with us. Don't go. We need you. And so, you know, by the time you've gone through your entire community and you're at the end, you can either choose to continue to mourn or you can join the tribe and welcome the others. So, yes, it's very simple, but it really speaks to us as humans. And so, I hope you know, look forward to those experiences. And I just think it's absolutely incredible coming here. I love it. It's just, as she said, traveling through ghosts. I mean, the woods here have secrets, and I guess you can all feel it, and we'll never know what they are. And that's another thing that separates us religiously from people with the book. Yeah. See, and the way it was described to me was that, you know, we were given a pipe, and the pipe, the stem represents the male, and the bowl represents the female, and they come together like that. And because we looked at Creator or God or the whole thing as a great mystery, like we didn't have to solve it necessarily. I don't know. We were given a Garden of Eden, you know, that's why. But because we had to know, and we had, you know, that's where the suffering comes in, and you know, all these other, and that's sort of the root of Buddhism and that kind of thing. But yeah, so there's sort of a victory in surrendering and saying, yeah, I don't need to know, I don't, you know, and so that's where we're. So thank you so much for your time. I'll let you guys know.
Center represent this area, so.
To make sure they understand the important work that is happening in here in terms of recognition and, you know, learning from. So, I got nothing else except I love that you're all here. Do you want to take over questions? Make a motion. Oh,
And then we go chase the chaos.
There you go.
So thank you everyone, and so one person asked, which obviously we throw the card away, are there any members of the Piscataway tribe still around? And so many. So absolutely yes, mainly concentrated in southern Maryland more. Part of the research I've been doing up in this area is to try to trace and see if I can find any lineage of peoples that stayed in this area and kind of join the communities here rather than sort of moving en masse as different bands of the tribe did with different historical things here. Peter, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but you can also go on Maryland government state webpage, and you can learn more about the tribes that have been officially recognized by the state of Maryland, including the Piscataway, various bands of the Piscataway peoples, and you can learn more about the history there. You can also email me, and I'm happy to share my resources with you, because they are a little tricky to find, unfortunately, at this point. As we've said several times this evening, one of the things that we hope to accomplish is to make this more accessible, easily accessible for people of all ages and walks of life, not just academics and not just archaeologists and people that have more of a technical background. Someone else asked, are maps archived and available online? Yes, you can find various maps online. I will tell you, my favorite map that I have found, which actually is not depicting Maryland. This is by Loudoun County, Virginia mapmaker and historian Eugene Shield. This is the American Indian map. He is quite an accomplished historian, so these are various sites here in Loudoun County, as well as a little bit here across the river in our area. So, you know, I never really was one for Santa, but if I were to make a Dear Santa list, it would definitely be Dear Santa. I would love for someone to make a similar version of this map, and lo and behold, what did one of the people in this round table do? But I would like to give this map to Peter. Yeah, pass it around, please. And then, secondly, the person who wrote this card said, natives' names for word and use of Great Falls. I don't know the name for Great Falls.
Research somewhere,
Yeah, I'm sure it's documented somewhere. I don't know offhand. As far as use of Great Falls, I do know there are two petroglyphs in the area of Great Falls. One that's particularly well known, and no one is sure who made it, when, or what it might mean. There are a lot of great theories, perhaps having to do with marking it as a fishing spot, maybe specifically for the shad migration in the spring. It could have a spiritual meaning to it. It is similar to the petroglyphs found at the Bald Friar site, which is where the Conwingo Dam is now today. So that's an amazing piece of history that a lot of Marylanders aren't aware of. But look that up, Bald Friar, which makes no sense, Conwingo Dam. And if you go down to Jefferson Patterson Museum and Park in Southern Maryland, they do have some of the petroglyphs there that have been saved. I highly recommend a field trip down there. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Peter.
Latin ceremony, yeah.
Yes.
If it's okay, I wanted to mention something because one of the artists brought up the missing and murdered women. And there's a couple of journals you can subscribe to online. One is Native News Network, and the other is Indigenous News Network. And it's a huge issue that's been larger for many years than here on the East Coast.
Right.
And so those are two good sources to follow what's going on, because it is truly thousands of women who are missing and murdered. And don't hear about it here a lot, but those are two great sites to follow that. So thanks to the artists who mentioned that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yes.
Yeah, the Maryland Center for Practice and Preservation of Music.
And how are you collecting those?
Oh, wow. Could I say potential board member? It's still a, visionary type of thing. The thing that's so exciting about it is I formed a relationship with Nepali refugees who formed a Hindu Buddha temple in Glenarm, Maryland. And so they were, I explained the thing, and they said, well, we've got 30 acres. If you guys want to do ceremonies and stuff, you can do them here. Now, a lot of the native ceremonies are labor and intensive. Like a sweat lodge, like I said, we've got it's about 3/4 of a cord of wood, that goes into it with the fires and all that kind of thing. So it can be resource intensive, but so we'll do small things there, but yeah, it's still at the very infancy stages, and the TIAC hasn't objected to it yet. So. Sure, yeah.
I just wanted to thank you for being here. I am Native American. I'm a member of Obatao Nation. That's from the southern Arizona, northern Mexico, what we call that border, aligned really good across our tribe. And I live here now in Maryland with my 2 young children, my 2 young sons. So I'm very aware of the Piscataway, and our tribe is also trying to form a nonprofit to preserve our culture and heritage. So we can chat about that later if you'd like.
Yeah.
But I just really appreciate you being here.
Well, do you want to talk about some of the differences? I mean, you guys, well, a lot of your stuff is underground.
Right, and we also we're a diasporic tribe now, so we don't have land. We're not recognized by a state or any federal government entities. We're spread out everywhere, so it wasn't until everyone really got online that we were able to even find each other. Because as a young child, I remember with my grandfather working to try to, how can we find this, or how do we find our people? When my great grandfather passed, he lived on his second wife's reservation. She was of a different tribe. And so, but once we were able to really, people got internet, and you were able to connect, and we have a Facebook page, and then we're able to connect with professors that we didn't know that were doing, research on our tribe because they thought we were extinct, and we're like, no, we're here. So it's something that's still really in progress, but also the challenge of trying to form a nonprofit when you're spread out everywhere and you don't have money. I'm trained as an attorney, so I can do all the paperwork, but now we have to make sure we have a board that can stay connected and, things like that. So it's interesting, yeah.
It is, it's a lot to it. Well, welcome. I mean, that's a long ways away. And, they're desert people and we're woodlands people. A lot of times this is what happens. You wonder why the Lenape tribe is so big, or the Piscataway tribe. It's because people would come here and there's turtles everywhere, there's rabbits, there's deer. The temperature, you're under this canopy of trees all the time. So yeah, it's like, well, and Piscataways are very chill people. We're not.
Peter, can you mention what you're doing with the Barnesville School children?
Oh wow! How did you know? Secrets out.
That's Alika's mom and my mom
Oh,
too.
that's right. Now I remember. Yeah, in fact, I have an article for you guys. I need to get your contact information. Yeah. So at the Barnesville, what I'm trying to do is, I do for the Arts Council. I'm a teaching artist, and that means I can come back and it's funded through the Arts Council. So they want me to get out there, and I am happy to come back here. Believe me. Well, it's not just my family has this history with the Point of Rocks, so I'm sort of a mountain person, and the people who survived are river people, like in Southern Maryland and stuff, so we don't really, and then we go in the same tribe. But yeah, it's throughout, That's what, so you guys have the Hatfields and McCoys, and we've got river. Just talk about each other all the time. But at the Barnesville School, what I was trying to do was introduce some of the traditions from here. So the Thanksgiving address in Robin Kimmerer's book, this is the oldest known public address for this part of the country. And so kids should know that. the story of how the Thanksgiving address came to be and the Great Law of Peace. So the Great Law of Peace was the operating government for all of the North America. Every native tribe understood the Great Law of Peace. Europeans wouldn't listen to it, you know what I mean? It was just hard to, so we knew that it was not going to work out too well. Because, capitalism is like, rush, come on, what do you got to say? You're moving on. And here this address is talking about the wind, and the fish, and water, so yeah, working with the kids, you can get them in a frame of mind where they're ready to hear this. And it's a great reorientation to what it is to be human. And, the neuroscientists have said that gratitude, even just thinking of something to be grateful for, is an antidote to so many of the social and psychological problems that we have. So, and this thing is just filled with gratitude. And how the Great Law of Peace was formed, how we had a sort of a Napoleon or Caesar or Alexander type figure with the Toledano. How did he come to peace? Because unlike the rest of those guys, he came full circle. He decided to war no more. And that was through people, artists, convincing him through their vision and the wampum belts and the singing and all of that. So I introduced that. I gave them a song as well, which I can give to you if you want. It's really kind of a simple song. And so stuff like that. And it culminates with them getting to do a Piscataway clan animal dance. And so each clan animal has a certain personality, and the teachers get to choose which clan animal you are, because it would normally come through your mother, and that was fixed. So we're recreating it. And then they get to understand personality and how each personality, whether you're a snake or a rabbit, it's all important in this web of life. And so that's the sort of culmination of the learning exercise. Because, as I say to the kids, like when that bridge collapsed on Francis Scott Key, the Tayak would have wanted to hear what the snakes have to say. And what do the beavers have to say? And the beavers would be for it. They're like, yeah, let's build a bridge. In fact, let's build two, in case it happens again. Whereas the snakes are like, we don't need this stuff, Let's just stay home and, work within our local community or what have you. So it's to hear all these different voices from the family members so that we're making a decision that's consistent with everyone else that, we have to share the land with. So that's sort of the perspective that we introduce the kids. So thank you for asking. Then in Sugarloaf, we're doing sort of a walking meditation. You're learning how to do the dances and stuff just through walking, because it is kind of a walking dance if you see it in a powwow or something like that.
Peter, can you say more about that? That's starting in August.
Yes.
Right? It's a series.
Right. Yes.
This is the Sugarloaf Unitarian community.
Yeah.
Over outside of Germantown.
Yep.
It'll be on Fridays, right?
Yep. I'll let you know. It's like the second Friday of every month or so. And so it's sort of a guided thing. It's not actually a native dance, but it is a similar feeling and all. And it includes the Thanksgiving address to kind of start it, because the Thanksgiving address is the words before all else. So you're supposed to start off with that. So it's I guess it's a chance. Like the one person who said, she had lost her husband, and so she's looking forward to this as a chance to try to remember the good things in that relationship. So it's sort of a walking meditation to the, steady beat type shaman music. So
Peter, where can people go to find out more about this?
Sugarloaf.
Their social media, probably.
Yeah, it's a fan page.
So look up the Sugarloaf congregation. I don't know if Unitarians use the word congregation. Community, I think. The Sugarloaf Unitarian community, which is over here on Germantown Road.
Yeah. So and Ben Bright, you can also find Christine and Nature Magazine. We bring you on as a corporate sponsor.
Oh yeah, fun too. You're gonna
Plenty
do that.
Thank you. Plenty Magazine. Yeah. Photos, my endorsement. So thank you very much. Yes.
I'm just wondering whether there's additional interest in another truth and reconciliation blanket exercise in this area?
Yeah, there is ceremony is an interactive history lesson where you actually participate as the history goes on from a Native American perspective. And so, the people are standing, and at one point, for example, we arbitrarily put a rope between the people who were standing and said, all the people north of the road sit down. This represents the US-Canadian border, or just their war with the people south. And I think you were separated from your daughter in that, and so yeah, you get to viscerally feel like what this history was like for us. And so we're trying to modify it for the East Coast. Like we have guys like Walter Plecker, who was the head of natural records for the state of Virginia, who made it illegal to put Native American on any birth certificate in the state of Virginia. That was sort of an unwritten law in Maryland, and it still is. You know, if we go in to have a child, we get a lot of pressure. Be like, well, are you Hispanic? Or are you, North African or something like that? If you say Native American, then
Meeting certain thresholds. I do education policy, and for Montgomery County Public Schools, we are regularly less than 5%, and so we don't get included in any of the demographic statistics, charts, anything.
Yeah.
Or if you have a biracial child, my children are Mexican and Native American, so I have to choose, and if I don't want them to not be completely excluded, it's just a whole issue.
Yeah. So, race is just, it's a tricky thing to deal with, but it's so important, and especially here. I think of all the states, they say that Maryland is the most British influence. And so there is that sort of unspoken kind of old boy network that's strong. Whereas New York, I guess, is more Dutch, history. Thank you. All right. Any other questions?
No, just if you're relative, we all will be thinking of your relative, I would say you.
Yeah, and that's the core of our belief system. We are all related. We are all relatives. So don't let anyone tell you that you don't have the right to access to this, because we are all related. We're all family members. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. It's your actions, you know what I mean? And so, your treatment of how you walk and think about the earth. So always remember that phrase is Mintakwe Awareness. Mintakwe Awareness. You're all related. It's in the code of phrase. And no Indian will deny that. It's like the great law of peace, That's fundamental to it, that we're all family. So, anybody. Good, thank you.
Thank you again to the artists. Thank you again to Peter. Thank you again to Historic Medley District, who allowed us to use this wonderful historic space. And thank you to Riverworks for hosting this. If you are interested in donating to Riverworks so that this type of programming can go on, they have a donation jar back there, as well as a QR code that you can scan. Please, if you would like, the first annual Poolesville Pride Fest is going on over here at Locals. You can also go there and get something tasty to, eat and drink. You can check out Pauline's Pauline's amazing art show, which just recently opened in this beautiful historic space. So thank you again, and please feel free to linger and come up and take a closer look at our
Christine.